Let's go ahead and start up. Today I wanted to kick things off with Bush and Obama and how they're twins. I'm going to make an argument that they were twins that got separated at birth, but I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, I wanted to start off with that and then do Halloween stuff, and then talk about an opt-out video contest, and then kick it, which means hang out. Does anybody say kick it these days but me? Kick it. Jorge says kick it. But how was Gold Rush? Did anybody go?
We went.
Forced.
You went? Yeah, forced. Oh, to March. Yeah, I saw you guys then. Yeah, very. Anybody? Did you go? Did you hear about what I did? I gave, you know, there was a guy handing out New Testament Bibles, so I took one from him. I was like, sure, why not? And then there was the Westboro Baptist type people, and they were like screaming about meth heads. So you got this guy in the corner. He's like, and there's a lot of meth heads around here. And so I went up and I gave him a New Testament. He wasn't that amused. I thought it was classic. But anyways, yeah, okay, so like actual political stuff. Are Bush and Obama twins? Does anybody see it? You see it? They look just alike? One person? Now you see it? Do you see it now? No? Let me zoom in a little bit. Maybe we can figure it out. Do you see it now? It's all in the ears. They're both they've both got these Dumbo ears going on. And they're both Dumbos, but anyways, be serious. I'll talk about how they're policy twins because they don't really look that much alike. It's kind of difficult to make that argument. And like I said, I think in the first meeting, I tend to break things into these three categories, like foreign, domestic and social, and economic. And it's surprising because if you look at each one, Bush and Obama both have a lot of similarities. It's incredible. So foreign policy, it's just a list. This is a list of some of the areas that the United States has been militaristically involved in the past decade. Iraq and Afghanistan, of course, were Bush's. But Obama has really stepped up intervention in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, and Egypt with political intervention. And so for a candidate who ran as a peace candidate and ran against the wars and talked bad about Bush for all the wars, to escalate military intervention in all these places with the troop withdrawals, the pseudo-withdrawals from Iraq and Afghanistan, but while increasing in all the other places, it's kind of odd. And really with drone strikes, Obama has ramped up the usage of drone strikes. And you know, if anyone knows, it's kind of hard to defend drone strikes because of their inaccuracy. They cause a lot of blowback, a lot of civilian casualties. And I think today a human rights group came out and said that they're a human rights violation because of how many innocent people that they kill, including women and children and infants. And so it's kind of odd that you have Obama okaying these drone strikes, murdering these innocents, while he also is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And, you know, their foreign policy, almost everyone agrees that Obama's foreign policy is really a continuation of Bush's, and there's not much difference. And I think Bill Kristol was the one who called Obama a born-again neocon, and a neocon is basically someone who likes to bomb the world. So people all kind of agree on that one. And here's, you know, Bush as a candidate saying the president doesn't have the authority to unilaterally wage war against the country. And then he intervened in Libya, and he's like, oh, never mind. And so in domestic policy, they're both the same, more or less, primarily with what is called the police state. So like government intervention into your privacy and your civil liberties. We see it a lot with the Patriot Act, and recently with a revelation of what the Patriot Act actually allows the government to do with this NSA spying. And so Obama, he campaigned against the Patriot Act. He said it was awful. He worked to fight against it. And then he gets in office, and he has the chance to kill the Patriot Act, and then he renews it. So you see, in that sense, he's been a continuation of Bush with government spying. And with the war on drugs, you know, Obama and Bush both, it's funny enough, they're past drug users. If either one of them would have been caught with the drugs under today's laws, they would have had no chance to be the president. But they keep up this horrendous and failed war on drugs that has all these negative unintended consequences and doesn't get drugs off the streets, because if there's drugs in the prisons, I don't think the war on drugs is going to get them off the streets. And so Obama has really continued the war on drugs despite suggesting that he wouldn't. I think to his credit, though, in Colorado and the other states that legalize marijuana, I don't think he's pursued them that much. He's kind of let that states' right exist. The two big things that are I tell these things to people. I'll be like, yeah, I'll explain these things, and they'll think I'm lying to them. They'll be like, what is wrong with this crazy libertarian, wacko bird, conspiracy theorist? He's been watching too much Alex Jones, and what he probably thinks 9/11 was an inside job. Well, I don't think that, but indefinite detention is basically that the government has given itself permission to arrest you without trying you and without giving you a trial or anything like that, and detain you for an indefinite amount of time. That's now legal with the NDAA for 2012. And so also the assassination of United States citizens, the Obama administration has made legal arguments for why they think that's okay. And we saw this with Anwar al-Awlaki and his teenage son, who was a United States citizen, both of them. And al-Awlaki was an alleged terrorist, probably a really bad guy, but he was a United States citizen. So under the Constitution, he has protections through due trial and everything like that. But he was in Pakistan. I'm pretty sure it was Pakistan. They hit him with a drone strike, killed him without any due trial or anything like that. And so since then, they've made arguments that, yeah, we do have the power to do this. And if these things aren't considered tyranny, then I have no idea what is. But what we see is that these sorts of powers were initiated by Bush, and Obama has continued them, despite campaigning as a civil libertarian and campaigning against all of these things. And when he was in the Senate, he was opposed to all these things, but now he's for them. And so it's like, I wonder what civil libertarians think of us now. It's like, well, just read their emails, because, you know. And even in economics, they're a lot alike, which probably surprises a lot of people. But with Bush, we saw bailouts, we saw stimulus packages. And then with Obama, we saw bigger bailouts, bigger stimulus packages. So they used the same sort of Keynesian economic model in response to the recession, which should be surprising, because most people don't think of Republicans and liberals using the same economics, but a lot of times they do. With spending, Bush had really high spending. Obama has had really high spending, super high deficits, racking up debt. I mean, we're past 17 trillion now. Each president, you know, some people like to blame Bush more, blame Obama more, but the bottom line is both have had a lot of debt, a lot of government spending, and a lot of deficits. So in that regard, they're almost identical. And even in healthcare, people think like, well, the Republicans are so opposed to Obamacare. They're so opposed to more government intervention into healthcare. But if you look at Bush's term with Medicare Part D, they expanded the government's role in healthcare. Now, not as much as Obamacare, and it's not as bad as Obamacare, but it's still more government involvement in healthcare. And so you really see this similarity between the two again. And so, policy-wise, I think they're kind of twins. And if you really look hard enough, you see maybe, and I got one more picture. Oh yeah, you know, Obama, he tried illegal wars, bailouts, torture, wiretapping, but what he really needed was the Stetson. And so I think the reason of confusion, a lot of people, if you tell them Bush is like Obama or Obama is like Bush, they're really like, what the hell are you talking about? That's absurd. Because they listen to just the rhetoric, but they have, you know, the political spectrum. I was going to draw it, but it's like a line, right? And people put liberals on the left, conservatives on the right. And so people think, okay, well, Obama's a liberal, so he's over here. Bush is a conservative, so he's over here. So there's no way they could be alike. But I think each of them wants bigger government, so it doesn't make sense for them to be on opposite sides, because they're both pushing for bigger government, even in theory, not just in practice. So I try to use a different political spectrum when I'm analyzing candidates, and it's statist over here and non-statist. So the statists are your Bushes, your Obamas, your McCains and Nancy Pelosi's, the ones who want bigger government in all aspects. Those are statists. And then non-statists are your libertarians, so like your Ron Pauls, Judge Napolitanos, and those sorts of people that want smaller government. And I think when you look at politicians in that way, you have a better framework to classify them. Because if you think about John McCain and Rand Paul, they're both conservatives, right? But McCain wants bigger government in most aspects, bigger military, more police state, and Rand Paul wants smaller things like that. So if you call them both conservatives, it's kind of like you can't put them in the same spot because their ideologies contradict them, you know? But if you classify them as statist and non-statist, then you have McCain clearly as the statist and Rand Paul is over here on the non-statist. So that's sort of the way that I like to group it. So when we think about Bush and Obama that way, we see that they're both statists, and neither one of them really wants smaller government.
Americano. Americano.